Football's coming back, but not as we know it. The good news is football's going to return in the relatively near future. 2 to 3 months, something like that. The bad news is you and I are not going to be watching it any time soon. Well, certainly not live anyway. We're not going to be going to the stadium in the way that we used to. And when we do, that's going to be a very, very long time. I've been passed some information. It appears to be the blueprint, the roadmap being set out for the government to ease restrictions. And it's quite extensive, but I do think there's lots of stuff that's pertinent to you and I in the way we live our lives, the way we go to work and whatnot. But this is really mostly about football. And there's a few things in it which I think have a massive impact on football, have a big impact on West Ham, and particularly have a really big impact on the surrounding area and the reasons for us moving to Stratford in the first place. Because I feel that a lot of these restrictions hit Stratford really, really hard, particularly in light of the reasons for moving there, particularly in light of the regeneration of the area following the Olympics, and particularly bearing in mind there's a whopping great shopping centre called Westfield, which is in such close proximity to us. It has to have some bearing on how the club is run and the future of the club and the ownership itself. But before we get to that, let's just look at this roadmap forward. It seems to be 5 phases. Phase 1 on the 18th of May, phase 2 8th of June, then 29th of June, 20th of July, 10th of August. As I say, I can't go through every single point, but there's a few things. So, for instance, in phase 1, which I think will be the 18th of May, it says construction workers, landscape gardeners and other outdoor workers may return to work. That's one of the bullet points. I guess a footballer of his training is an outdoor worker. If the building itself is closed, then a footballer is an outdoor worker. It also says fitness and sports activities for non-contact in small groups, maximum 4 people, may resume. Golf is included. Golf is going to breeze through this, okay? It's going to be really easy. Just to do a couple of tweaks for that game. I guess they take the caddy out of the equation, and it's pretty much job done for that. Football, so I can see training getting going in groups of up to 4 very, very soon. So that means people are back. They're back on the training ground. Social distancing is going to be the theme throughout this. That's not going to stop, because the other thing that I've been privy to is the NHS very much expecting, whilst maybe not a second peak, a second massive wave when flu season comes round, when it gets to autumn and stuff like that. So they're going to be really preparing for that. So we're getting back to training. Germany are already doing it at the moment, as we know. We discussed the other day that 3 German players from Cologne had tested positive. Well, actually, the division below the Bundesliga, another 10 players have tested positive, but they seem to be carrying on. Whether that's right, wrong, safe, not safe, we'll deal with in another video, because there's so much to get through here. On phase 2, bear with me on this because it all ties in. It says specific retail hours will be allocated for those currently cocooning. Up to 4 people may visit another household over a short period of time, and it carries on. There's lots and lots of stuff there. It says small retail outlets that can control staff and customer numbers can maintain social distancing may open. Outdoor sporting activities, including small group training, no matches, it's very particular, no matches can commence. There's no contact still allowed at this point. So that's phase 2, which, as I told you, is the 8th of June. It goes down to the 29th of June is phase 3, 20th of July, and the 10th of August. Now, without me just reading off lists and lists and lists, it gradually eases. It continues to ease until you get to phase 5. Where it says social gatherings will be permitted except for large gatherings. Well, that's interesting, okay? It also says mass sporting events may recommence where social distancing can be maintained. Lots of other stuff, but let's just get to that and let's deal with the retail stuff. Because, firstly, I do think at West Ham we will be able to do the social distancing at the London Stadium, for all the reasons that many of us hate the London Stadium, are going to be many of the reasons why we're going to be able to do the social distancing. Do I think we're going to be able to get 60,000 fans in there? No, nowhere near. Do I think you could possibly get a situation where you get 15,000 fans in and around the area and in the stadium with social distancing? Yes, I do. 15,000 fans? Rubbish. I know. But it's something. And if these restrictions are accurate and these are going to be put in place, then actually the Olympic Park becomes a hell of a benefit. The Olympic Park is vast. There's masses and masses of spaces. The fact that there are so many wide bridges giving the entrance into the London Stadium does mean that at some point, be it through ballot, be it through whatever, you are going to be able to go and view some football, albeit on a massively scaled down sort of model. What they'll do with catering, what they'll do with anything else, I just don't know. I still think there's a massive issue with regard to catering, not just in football stadiums, but I just mean generally. I mean, the other day you had the pizza boasting about they do all of these different things to make it hygienic, to make it clean. They're taking all these extra precautions up to the point nobody handles it when putting it into the box and so on and so forth. Yet a bloke with no gloves on still sticks it in his car, breathes all over it, and brings it to your doorstep. So there are going to be certain measures that need to be put in place to make the whole hygiene process with regard to catering conform to what are clearly going to be new government standards on everything. It appears clear that they're going to legislate on all of this, by the way, as well. So I think that's a massive bonus. But here's the big but. I think Westfield's screwed. I think almost all retail is screwed in that sense. For anyone that's ever been to Westfield, you don't have to have been to Westfield, anyone that's ever been to a big shopping mall, a super-sized shopping mall, which Westfield absolutely is, they are jam-packed. Every shop is jam-packed. Now, I do think I reckon about half the businesses are going to go in there. There's not too many retail businesses that are robust enough to ride through what's just happened to the economy. We're in a recession, it's just not official yet. We won't officially be in a recession until this quarter's figures come out. But we are. There's going to be a lot of businesses gone to the wall. But what happens if they're going to restrict numbers? Number one, inside the shopping centre. Number two, inside the shops. And they are. That's exactly what's going to happen. Number one, even if it was successful, it's going to take you a whole day, at least, to do a little bit of shopping. You're working on the assumption that everybody wants to go shopping anyway. Most won't. What's happened recently with all this nonsense and with all this everybody being locked down, with everybody being in panic mode, with everybody being... A lot of people in a state of high anxiety. A lot of people are not going to want to go out. A lot of people are not going to want to go shopping. A lot of people are not going to want to go to the football. I dare say there's going to be a lot of people watching this now, which if the restrictions were lifted tomorrow and they said West Ham are playing on Saturday, anyone can go, I reckon there's a lot of people watching this now and say, actually, I don't want to go. I don't want to go on public transport. I don't want to go and be in a crowd. I want to let the dust settle on this for a fair while. My point is about the retail. I think a lot of business is going under. That has to operate Westfield on a massive turnover. It has to create profits and lots of them to be viable. I wouldn't be surprised if that whole place is mothballed eventually. I don't know enough about the finances of Westfield. I know it's owned by an Australian guy and he's very, very successful. But retail is going to be hit as much as anything in this. Unless you're Tesco or somebody like that who seems to have done quite well out of it all. What does that do, Westfield collapsing to the surrounding area? What does that do to the Stratford project? What does that do to the whole dream of the real estate, to use an American term, being worth so much? What does it do to the value of West Ham? Because I can see Stratford more or less being a ghost town for all of this. Not the old Stratford, by the way, the new Stratford. The Olympic Stratford, if you want to call it that. The former site of the Olympic Village. People will return back. There's no doubt about it. People will go back to their daily lives, but it won't be like before. They're talking about offices. There's one office in particular, it was on the news this morning, they have 3,000 employees. They're talking about only having 500 in at a time. The hot desking, or whatever they call it, is going to be stopped. More people working from home, less people on public transport. And what happens when all that goes on? What happens to football? What happens to the value of property? What happens to, as I say, to Stratford itself? I said before, I think we're stuck with the owners. I think they're stuck with us. I'm still gobsmacked. You saw my first video about Newcastle. I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think the deal would go through. I thought it was an odd time to buy a club. It now appears that the people that were in on it, so you had, I think the Saudis were buying 20%. He had this, I think her name was Amanda Shelby, something like that, was taking 10%, and there were a couple of local brothers who were in property development in the Newcastle area. I think they were taking 10% as well. You don't want to be in property development at the moment. I mean, the bottom has fallen out of that industry as well. But it's just not a good time to buy a football club. It's really not. And I just think, well, if that's the case for Newcastle, it's going to have to be the case for everybody else. Newcastle may go through. But I think the value of everything plummets. The value of West Ham is going to plummet significantly. And what was previously an attractive, I think relative, bearing in mind we didn't own our stadium, I think an attractive enough proposition, because Stratford was up and coming, because there was massive developments, massive building works, most of that's ground to a halt. It was right next to an international shopping centre. And of course, don't forget, transport links, the great transport hub. Well, if transport is going to be used a lot less than it used to, I'm not sure what the benefits of Stratford are, aside from the fact that it may allow us to get to a game and get out more safely than it would have done previously, because you look at a lot of these grounds, you look at Everton, it's been really difficult for a club like Everton to do any sort of social distancing there, because it's like Upton Park in that sense. You walk down the street and you go in, and it's very, very tight in there. I just thought it was interesting. I look at this and I just think, okay, football's changing. The way we're going to watch football's changed. Well, it's changed already, hasn't it? That's the point. But when we go back, we may find Stratford and Westfield a very, very different place indeed. We'll see. Time will tell, I guess. Anyway, right, I'm going to see you all tomorrow. So I'll be back with something else. I've been given some sweets. I've been given some prizes, some presents from some of you lovely, lovely subscribers. I'll show you what I've got. I'll show you what I've got tomorrow. Before I go, please do, if you want to sponsor the channel, please you can click on the Patreon link, which is below. Sponsor Hammers Chat. You get some additional content. Myself and Gio are working on some new things. I say football's having to adapt. We're having to adapt as well. Stay safe. Nice weather this week, apparently. So hopefully as they ease the restrictions, get out a little bit more. And never know. We might have something a little bit more positive to talk about.